which are photographs, one of different aspects of childhood amongst the tribe, and the other are the seances and trance dance. I'll be talking about these, but if my talk is too boring, just look at lovely pictures. Okay? So just send them along and then send them back. But they're also on posters on the walls. First of all, I would like to thank Claire for really sticking with the idea of this book. I think it is a huge move forward, and I think Claire deserves a huge clap. And I would also like to thank Jessica Kingsley Publishers. They are represented here, but I don't know where they are. So please put your hands up. Right, okay. For taking on board this project, which was a whole new step, which is quite unlike many of your other publications. So I think this was a big, brave step for a publisher as well. So can we give them a clap?
I just want to check that we're hearing. Are you hearing at the back?
Yep.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a dead place here, so I just let you know.
Okay, thanks.
It's a bit dead back here.
Now, one of the commentators at Wimbledon was commenting on Nadal and said, well, he has his own little rituals. And if you've been watching Wimbledon this year, you'll notice Nadal does either crosses himself or he pulls here and pulls here and pulls here in a very sort of interesting little personal routine. And I thought, why do people call this ritual? It is not ritual. It is a personal habit or a personal repetitive piece of movement that calms him or focuses him and so on. And one of my issues around the word ritual is it gets used in such a popularistic way when really we're talking about people behaving in a ritualised way. For a ritual to be really a ritual, it has to have at least one other person. And it is a shared piece of symbolic activity of some kind that has meaning to the participants, often has meaning to the observers, but it involves a heightened sensory awareness and it involves all the arts. There is no simple definition of ritual, but that, in my mind, is what ritual is about. And the connection with ritual and theatre, and therefore ritual theatre, is one of the most important aspects of the whole field of dramatherapy. And I'm very pleased that tonight is making a statement about that. Now my work, as Claire said, I took my 3 children with me to live in the rainforest in Malaysia. And I sort of went out there. The idea was to forget about dramatherapy and just do anthropology. I was going to leave it at home and come back to it, 18 months down the line. And when I got there, and part of me wanted to study child rearing, part of me wanted to study dance, and I was like all over the place initially with the things I wanted to do. But what was so breathtaking in what I was witnessing was that actually I was looking at some very deep roots that would connect with what we understand about dramatherapy. First of all, in terms of the child rearing, and you'll see on the photographs going round, you'll see children, the 4-year-old who's bathing a newborn baby or a very, very young baby. You'll see a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old dressing up with a 1-year-old on each of their backs, playing the role of mothers. You'll see that the children from this early age are being socialised, not just into behaviour, but into what is expected of them in a ritual way. So the rituals for the Temiar start at birth and continue. The birthing ritual is a very, very interesting one, and you'll see a photograph of the midwife. That's the only black and white photograph, who's got one of her birth children on her back. With the tribe, you don't talk about your godmother, you talk about your midwife, the woman who delivered you. And people right into old age, if their midwives are still alive, will go and visit them. If it's a long journey in a logboat upriver, they will go and see their midwife. The whole ritual of the birthing process is witnessed mainly by older women, as old as the one in that picture, and there is chanting, there's a calling to the spirits from the river to help, to make an easy passage, because the river's supposed to be involved in this baby being able to sort of flow out. Those of us that have been through labour would say it's anything but a flow, but let's think of the symbolism. And what actually happens is what I called the grand opening ceremony, because just as the woman's about to give birth, the women all sit and open their legs. They open the fishing nets, they open the suitcases where they store things, they take the lids off saucepans. So you've got like an orchestrated opening, and the baby is born. And the baby is born onto a wooden slatted floor in a stilt house, because the woman that's seen to be in ritual danger is the mother. So the baby is left, the placenta comes away, the baby is lying there attached to the placenta, while the mother is ritually bathed and cleaned and so on. So right from the word go, the younger children are listening at the doorways, so they actually do know what's going on, although they don't come actually into the room. Babies are ritualised into the symbolic life of the tribe. Now, I haven't time to go into all the ins and outs of their rituals, but what I think is very interesting is that they have a continuum of the same ritual. So you can do a very similar activity, which is for fun, what they call playing, jekwa jekwa, it means tonight we're going to play. And they will do their dances, the women and girls have 2 bamboo stompers and beat out on a wooden log the rhythms. One of the shaman will lead the singing. And when it's a playful evening, often it's one of the minor shamans. And again, if you see the trance pictures, the man upright in the middle, he's what the Temiar called a minor shaman. And they come to me and they say, "Oh, Sue, if you've got a headache, go and see him. But if you're really ill, go and see so-and-so. You know, don't go and see about anything serious. He's okay, but not for anything too serious." But what was interesting, in relation to healing, it wasn't just the healing of individuals, it was the healing of the village and the community. And if it was very serious illness, it could be healing of the whole river valley. Now, the shaman were graded into minor, medium, major, and great shaman. And great shaman, you would only find one in any river valley. The great shaman were the only shaman that, it was believed, would be able to get tiger as their familiar. Tiger would be their helper in the healing seances. Now, tiger and thunder for the Temiar are the 2 major fears. Children from birth are socialised into fear of tiger and thunder. That's where all the punishments come from. Which means that parents can be very indulgent, because everything is out there on tiger and thunder. And traditionally, it was unheard of for Temiar parents to ever hit their children. On the very rare occasions they did, they would be full of remorse and apologetic and hug and say they were sorry and so on. With the encroachment, which I'll talk about in a moment, in recent times, these values are changing very sadly. And I'll tell you actually what's happening to the Temiars. I was back there just a few months ago. Now, most of the healing happens in the sort of seance. You can see all the decorations in those photographs. And if it was felt that healing was needed, often a shaman would call it a seance. And I got used to observing that there would be a bit of tension in the village. Maybe people weren't quite so physically close to each other. Like that, he would call a seance. And this would be very much a bringing together of the whole community. It would go on usually till dawn, and you see the woman who is lying, sleeping on the floor, and you can see bits of decorations lying around. And the shaman would go on singing until first light, and that would be the closure of the seance. And it would start off with a lot of singing, a lot of dancing, a lot of teenagers falling all over the place, and the older people think, oh, they don't even know how to trance, you know. They're too young, they don't know enough. And there was this wonderful thing about respect for age. And they would comment on sometimes when teachers were sent from outside into the nearby village, and they would shake their heads and come and talk and say, how can they teach anything? They're not old enough. When you're old, you know, and they'd use this gesture, which of course, as we know, is a shamanic gesture. Why does Father Christmas have pictures going like this? Because in the olden days, Father Christmas was a shaman. But that's another story, but well documented. They would say knowledge comes with age. And what was very interesting for me as a researcher is they couldn't decide whether I was still fertile or not. And a huge debate went on, quite. Because if I was not fertile, then I would have the respect term for old woman, which is cha-cha. If I was fertile, then I would have a name which would be after my first child, which is parents are called after the name of the children, not the other way round, you see. But what happened in the end, they decided, they kept asking their children, do you think your mother's going to have any more babies? And the kids would come in, they want to know if you're going to have babies, Mum. They decided probably I wouldn't, so I was Jaja. So I was treated in a totally different way than if I was still considered fertile and probably having more children. If you're Jaja, then people come and ask you about things. And I made a big mistake one day when people were chatting, because there was no sense of privacy at all. Because I was adopted by that midwife in the picture, and she said to me, you're my daughter, all these other relationships fell into place. So I would have hordes of people on the doorstep saying, well, actually, I'm your cousin because, or, you know my younger brother, which means we have this relationship. And so the children and I one day just tried an experiment, and we just put a little thong round the door into our house, because we had a stilt house, like everybody else. And there was no idea that we didn't want to see them, they just all sat outside. They sat outside for 2 hours. And we thought we actually have to let them in, so we opened the door again. So a quite different notion of community and sharing. So, healing seances, and if people are ill in a minor way, you as the client go into trance, and it's supposed to bring about a transformation that will make you feel better. If you are seriously ill, they would not risk you going into trance, because going into trance means that your head soul, which rests here, leaves your body. And if somebody is ill, it's very dangerous for their head soul to leave their body. The shaman will do everything he can to keep your head soul there, but he will go into trance, and he says he goes on a journey to see what do you need to do, what could he bring back. What could you bring back from the head souls of flowers or plants or mountains? Because everything has a head soul, according to the Temiars. And the shaman himself will go on a journey to bring back what is needed. And I just want to show you how they actually do that. But I'd like, in the meantime,